Welcome to Talent Titans, the podcast where we bring you global entrepreneurs and leaders from the staffing industry. I'm your host, Suky. This episode is sponsored by Ascend. Hiring in the US and Canada can be complicated, but Ascend makes it easy. Their all-in-one white label platform takes care of onboarding, payroll, benefits, and compliance so you can focus on growing your agency. To learn more, visit ascend.com. Now, let's jump right in and welcome today's guest. Hi, welcome back to another episode of Talent Titans. Today we're talking leadership, but we're talking leadership not just about how to manage people day to day, but the vision and what it really takes to truly lead with a vision. And my guest today is Jeremy Peters, Vice President from Teema Solutions. Jeremy, welcome.
Pleasure to be on your podcast. I've been listening to it for several years now and attended a few of your Canadian Staffing Summit. Always appreciate the catalyst that you are for the industry here in Canada.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. We have a great market. Canada's a great place to be doing business in. So,
Absolutely.
Jeremy, for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit more about who Jeremy is.
Yeah, well, it's coming up 20 years. Hard to say that. I've spent nearly 20 years in the human capital industry, and I call it, I've been shaping careers and organizations. I've been a part of global leaders like Randstad and Adecco, small boutiques, and like you mentioned, I'm now with Teema Solutions Group. My journey's taken me from positions as entering in as a recruiter, selling at the desk, branch management, and now in more of the executive leadership forum. As the executive director of growth, that's my title at Teema, I'm really proud to really mention this because I'm driving and supporting and being ambassador with an organization that I really feel is redefining the staffing industry. Teema is what we call a member-based ecosystem, and it's really flipping the script on that traditional employer-employee model, blending what I call the best of what a platform provides and scalability within this community feeling, what a traditional agency would offer. And I see myself, as I have in every position, every organization I've been a part of as an architect, to bringing that vision to life today now in Teema, for example. And part of the slogan is to bring, the brand promise is bring great people better to live better together again. And it's pretty cool because at the heart of our mission is it's about providing the best community, the best lifestyle, the best experience, and a highly valuable commission plan. So it's something that we are incredibly proud of to offer.
Amazing. And managing an organization, a team of individuals like that is so different to managing your traditional employee-employer relationships.
That's right.
Part of the reason people are in your network, as you said, your members, is because they want the benefits of working for themselves.
They want the best of both worlds. Most members, when they join us, they maybe have outgrown being in a traditional agency, but they also don't want to be alone as a one-off, right? So they want that feeling of being in a community of other entrepreneurs, I would call it, but have that flexibility to determine that they can live their best lifestyle. We have some members that live abroad, but obviously work through the platform day in, day out. So we are that unique harmonization of you will get support. We actually focus and feel like a traditional agency, but there's a great deal of flexibility. We're not determining where you work or how you work, for that matter. And you get to create your best version of yourself is what you're able to bestow on you. So it's really like betting on yourself, but having a lot of supporting mechanisms around you.
Amazing. So let's talk vision, because
for sure,
every organization, like if you don't have vision, what are you doing? But it's got its flaws because a lot of companies have the vision, the executive team does the vision, then they stick it on the wall and tell everybody about it. But in your particular case, you've got the vision of Teema as an organization, and the very nature of your members being independent contractors, they have their quote unquote own vision for what they want. So how do you balance the two? How do you make sure the two are aligned?
Well, I'll start off by saying this. I mean, vision is owned by leadership, right? So just before I answer specifically that question, is leadership needs to get upon himself to take. They need to craft a vision
Mm-hmm.
that really encompasses what that organization is today and what it wants to become. The difficult part and the more funner part, in my opinion, is building alignment around that vision, and then obviously you got to champion that vision. So you got to make goals very significant, concrete, collective. But I think what most people want to hear is, do they feel inspired by that vision? So you have to be okay with testing assumptions by a vision. And vision is really underestimated, and it really should be focused on more as organizations get to go through change. And certain organizations are more have an aptitude of really, I call it disruption by design versus disruption by default.
Yep.
And I think it's just basically important that vision answers the following: where are we going? Why does it matter? It helps people actually get their energy behind something. It allows us to have a shared concept of what the future will look like. Vision actually can help you turn strategy into storytelling. And that's when it really matters the most, is right at the field levels, speaking to your colleagues about what does vision mean for them and believing them that they should feel inspired by it. But, to your point, that's the importance here, is you got to translate vision into reality at the end of the day. That is something that you have to continually do every single day. Yeah.
Why do so many organizations get it wrong? And I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying the vision is wrong, the execution. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking of a company, their vision is to double revenue within the next 3 years.
Right.
They're a
Right.
big company. So it's a big, lofty goal is doubling. Because it's easier to go from 1 to 2, but trying to go from 100 to 200 takes, is a lot more work. And senior leadership team has the vision. It's great. And they're implementing some things to help
Mm-hmm.
realize that vision. But what I'm finding, the lower down you go on the org chart, sort of like that middle management level, no one is talking about the vision. To them, they're on their quote unquote island. They've got to make sure that their team does X and delivers X. So they're not talking about the vision in interviews or anything like that. But when I'm talking to the C suite, all they're telling me is about the vision about doubling. Huge disconnect.
That's right. I agree. We see this all the time, right? So vision is, I mentioned before, it's foundational. I think vision is really an active process. It can't be just a one-time statement. I think the pitfall that can sometimes happen is leaders will get in a boardroom and every January they focus on what are their goals for this year, right? And I think what has to happen is that building of a vision needs to be exploratory across the whole organization, actually. And that's a lot of work on a leader, but I believe in having little campaigns, committee meetings on what does it mean for us to explore what our next best version is, what does it mean to be bold. I mentioned this about testing assumptions. You really want to make sure then that people feel they were part of the composition of that. Even small teams can benefit from defining their mini vision. That's some of the pitfalls are when you don't do it right, decisions become reactive rather than proactive. And when you don't do it right, you can miss opportunities actually in the marketplace. So it's really critically important to not fall in that pitfall of, let's just do this exercise, put it out every January, and we'll follow up at the end of the year. So it really sits on the shoulders of leaders to make sure that if you don't have a vision, then what can happen is you can actually create confusion over what success actually looks like in your organization. Then short-term thinking replaces strategic thinking, and that's not what you want to do. So the exercise you have to go through is a bit of a drip campaign. From my experience in organizations that I feel have done this best. Some will do it through a short-term planning mechanism, and I think you have to do simultaneously a long-term vision planning. So I think it's okay to have a simultaneous, in the short term, here's our short-term goals. In the long term, here's our long-term goals. So what will happen is, the colleagues of an organization will buy into it or feel inspired for it, maybe in a different way. As long as there's this acknowledgement that they have an understanding of where the ship is going. Are we going east? Are we going west? Are we going north? Are we going south? People want to feel like they know where they're going. They want to know the quadrants. They might not show as passion as the next person, but
Yep.
as long as they have that acknowledgement, this is where we're going. These are some of the tidbits that I've learned in my career on things that need to be top of mind all the time, actually.
Should
Yeah.
everybody be bought into the vision the same way, same level? So let's use the typical 10x, right? Should
Yeah.
everybody truly believe in 10xing? So if you don't have, if there's people in your organization that don't believe, don't think that 10x, should they be part of the organization? Or is it okay
Hmm.
to have people in the organization that just don't think 10x, they think 3x? Because you're still moving forward. I mean, where does that sit? Because I just take me for my business as a smaller business, we can
Hmm.
afford to have everybody thinking the same 10x, 5x, 12x, whatever that looks like. Larger organizations, they can't. They can't have everybody thinking that same level of growth because they'd run out of people. Now, do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
So, is it really that important that everybody truly, truly buys into the exact vision?
Well, I think all leaders got to inspire, folks to feel that they can dream. So to your point, 10x, thinking 10x bigger is not comfortable for everybody.
Yep.
So what will happen is there'll be four degrees of action. Either one will just do nothing, one will retreat, or thirdly, one will just take normal actions. They'll play their part. But there are always those folks in your organization that will take that massive. I will do my 10x action so we can hit our 10x goals. So I think it's incredibly important to go through the dreaming state. I think leaders got to create a form and an allowance to ensure that they perform these types of exercises. To your point, though, you're not going to maybe get the same level of XX energy level coming out of the outcome of it, but that's okay. I think the point is getting to a point where people are believing it and feeling inspired by it. And I recently did this in my organization where we asked one simple question: what does Teema of tomorrow look like? And we gave them a few pillars to look at from an innovation standpoint, from a brand perspective. If you could do it all over again, how would you organize? How would you organize Teema in a different way? And it was fascinating to me when you asked that question. Like, wow, I feel very privileged that you're asking me this question. That I have some say on what is the team of tomorrow. Now, we might not take all those ideas into action, but the majority of them get the feeling that we will take them in and we will follow up with what are the themes that we feel will be the 10x of Team of Tomorrow. So there's different ways to do this through drip campaigns, through community calls, through quarterly reports. Town halls are incredibly important to this as well. But yeah, those are some of the nuggets that I picked up over the years of my career
Yeah, I think it's
on how to get the buy-in.
it's
Yeah.
important that people feel heard. And
Yeah.
like as I said, I'm a 10x thinker, but I'd be lying if I said I'm 10x 52 weeks of the year. There are days, well, you know what it's like
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
because a 10x vision is not easy. So when we first started
Right.
Lord doing the summits, I remember saying, if I'd said to my team back then, hey, we're
Yeah.
going to do these summits, they're going to be sell out, we're going to do them annually, we're going to do them internationally as well, my team would have been like, what? What is she on? Where's the evidence? Because I was saying we're going to go from no experience, never hosting a summit, to doing these international. So at that time, I just said, we're going to do one. And this is the vision for that one,
Simple goal.
right? If I
Yeah.
said to them by 2025, we would have done Canada 3 times, we would have done London, second one's in
Mm.
London next year, South Africa's coming up, they would have been like, what is she smoking? So I think it's
Yeah.
important that even when we're doing the vision, it's realistic. And there's a level,
Hmm.
yes, a stretch goal, but there's got to be a level of people can see it, right? They can see it. They know there's work to be done, but they're
Hmm.
looking at it and saying, you know what? Yeah, I know what I have to do. Whereas a lot of companies, and I'm going to say the large ones are
Yeah.
the guilty ones, they create the vision in the boardroom, they bring in
Hmm.
that next tier of management, And then the vision is put out and everybody's expected to follow it. Most people don't buy into it because to them it's a job. So I like how Teema done it because your team felt they were heard. They weren't expecting you to take each and every one, but they felt they were heard.
That's right. I don't know if you heard of this concept called vivid vision. It's intentionally, and it's you kind of when I was reflecting, what you said is it's about describing what success looks like. If a leader can describe what success looks like and feels like, that actually helps you inspire that big picture. So yeah, to your point, are we going to do 5 summits? No, you kept the focus on one. So having that one win was your mission, right? And I remember reading a story out of an organization that it came out of Vancouver. It's 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And they had a goal of, they only wanted to hire employees that felt that they were aligned to their vision right out of the gates during the hiring process. So instead of saying we were going to grow our revenue by 30%, a vivid vision might say it's 2028. Our brand is globally recognized for transforming the workplace through human-centered design, let's call it. And that's just an example to give it. What 1-800-JUNK did is when you submit an application, you didn't get a phone call to book an interview. You got a response saying, thank you, but here's our vision that we have. Here's some objectives we want to accomplish in our organization. We would like to hear from you on understanding if you could submit a short video. How do you feel aligned to that vision? How can you contribute towards that vision? So imagine getting that, eh? And the feedback I got and heard and read about the 1-800-JUNK is they immediately created like a bit of a cult sensation that people wanted to be part of such a highly visible, visionary type organization. And in the first 5 years, they only had a 5-6% turnover ratio. Their engagement survey rates were in the high 90s because these employees felt very aligned to the vision as they entered in, because that's the framework that the leadership had. You can't join our organization unless you have some form of alignment into this vision that we are trying to reach.
And
So I
those
just want to
people
share
that
that's
didn't
a
want
vivid
that
vision.
aggressive vision or join a company with that level of aggressive growth and what have you, they self-select themselves out. So I actually think that's a fantastic way of doing it.
Yeah,
Right. So it's not the
absolutely
company
it is.
saying
Yeah.
we don't think you're aligned. It is the individual saying, I do not think I'm aligned here.
You know what I love about it too? It creates that clarity that everyone knows exactly what the future looks like. I believe it drives focus. Decisions are now aligned quite quickly. You actually get impact right away, improves communication, encourages innovation. So yeah, I think it's a great way to put into the hiring process.
Yeah. No, I think that's a brilliant idea. So now I want to pivot a little bit to leadership, not just from the
Hmm.
strategy perspective, but you hear so much. Like you can go on your Kindle and key in leadership and goes
Hmm.
a billion books will come up. This person says this is a way to do it. This person says this is a way to do it. In your case, particularly with Teema right now, you've got this really interesting leadership, some may say challenge, because you're not that traditional employee employer model. You're actually managing a group of independent contractors who, by the very nature, are self employed. So, how have you had to pivot your leadership to be aligned with the Teema model?
Yeah, it's a really great question, this one, because at the heart of Teema's organization is that our members are really the growth levers of the organization. But at the end of the day, the organization and its leadership layer does need to do that exploratory of what does the best version of Teema look like? How can we be bold? We still got to test assumptions, but at the heart of it, we are in doing we're doing business together is what we're doing. If you think about it, eh?
Hmm.
So there's a harmonization that has to be required, and it has to be. I have to be a lot more. I feel more intentional about what is the role they play in it, because really it's not that employer-employer relationship. It's a different of your business contributes towards our business. Collectively, though, we do need to have harmonization of what is the context of what we're trying to reach collectively together. So we're incredibly intentional about what that vision looks like. We create a short-term, what we call a short-term vision and a long-term vision with rapid changes, and because they're independent contractors, they're not mandated by a budget, but what we do is to inspire them towards this is the role they play in it. So we give them data insights, we give them what's happening in the Canadian US economy, we give them statistics of what's happening in certain service types and vertical types. So you really got to make sure that you equip them with the insights, the vision, and the drip campaigns to get them on board with you. But vision pitfall can be that if you don't do that, it can be dangerous, right? Despite the fact that Teema has a very unique model, I still think that decisions can still become reactive rather than proactive if we're not constantly putting that vision out there. So it's something that we continually work on every single day at Teema for sure. Yeah.
And I guess going back to sort of like your traditional model, I'm paying you X for X results. Whereas in your
Yeah.
case, it's almost like a business, well, it's a more of a business to business relationship. So what
Correct. Yeah.
stage in your leadership? So let me phrase the question differently. So as a leader, what happens when there's that disruption to that? Because we've all dealt with companies, whether it's, I
Yeah.
don't know, we're having a new kitchen built, new software, whatever it might be. Um, Same principle applies. They have agreed to deliver X and we're going to pay Y for it. So, how do you, when those situations come up, as a leader, how do you handle them? What's your go to strategy?
Yeah. Well, our number one growth strategy in our organization is membership growth
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And when a member enters into Teema, they get to define their success. You're right. We're not projecting, in a traditional staffing model where you would say your budget is
Yeah.
XX. They would define what their level of definition of success looks like, and we would reverse engineer
Ah,
to ensure that they reach that success. So it's a reversing engineering process we go through at Teema to determine if so we can predict on how the company will perform, right? If not, then it becomes crossing our fingers situation, which is not ideal, right? So it's holding the member accountable to the definition of the success that they put in their business plan. So we go through a great deal of vetting process through a business plan because it's a business to business relationship. And in a true partnership, despite it not being an employer-employer relationship, I think it's still you should still be an advocate of ensuring that people are accountable to themselves and giving them the data insight. So we're a collection, a harmonization of ensuring that at the heart that they reach those goals. And every member has a different set of tangibles that they define success by. One thing you have to keep in mind is one of the key features in our organization is that you get to perform this in the best lifestyle that you feel will allow you to reach that potential. And I get many positive comments about I'm able to reach a higher level of output because of Teema's allowance of I'm able to live the best lifestyle at the same time. So there's amazing merit there that differentiates us compared to our competitors that way. Because if you can live the best lifestyle that you feel determines will create you to get your best output, Teema really does come out on top of that if you think about it as well.
yeah, I like what you said there. You're so again going back to your traditional employer employee. I, as the employer, I'm setting the boundaries, the parameters,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
results. I'm making all the decisions. Let's
that's right.
be if we put it bluntly like that. But in your model, you're saying to the individual, you give us your plan, and we're going to quote unquote hold you accountable to that plan without actually holding you accountable because they are
Yeah,
self-employed. So it
that's
becomes
correct.
their vision. You actually comes back to vision, right? What you're doing is
Yeah,
you're helping them achieve their vision, whatever that
that's
vision
correct.
might look like.
We're helping equip them. We're helping giving them the best lifestyle. We're helping them be a part of a community That's what really differentiates Teema. You have support like a traditional agency. So that is kind of the reminder we give them that is there. You're defining that level of success. It's incumbent on leadership to ensure that they materialize that definition of success.
Yeah, that's really
Absolutely.
interesting because I'm thinking of some of your competitors who shall name nameless, and they literally just I've spoken to them. They don't have that thought process that you guys do. Their vision is to grow membership base and grow revenue. Which is fine, which is every business, right?
Which
You
is
want
fine.
to, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. But going back to vision, that level of thought and dare I say sophistication is not there,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
And that's what that game changer is, and that's why you as a leader would have had to have pivoted the way you think, the way you lead people, because they're no longer quote unquote your employees.
That's
How
correct.
difficult was that for you? I mean, what were some of the challenges you had?
Well, the challenges I had, I came from I came, from traditional staffing agencies that you go through a bit of a rinse and repeating and you're drinking the Kool-Aid,
Yep.
right? Where here I had to translate the membership's themes and how they define success and re-engineer saying, well, okay, our community is saying this is what success looks like. We can translate this into our growth strategy now. So it's a very grassroots level of building strategy. It's not a top-down
Yep.
strategy
What traditional
where I am today,
visions are.
which that's where I came from,
Yeah.
right? The CEO sets the strategy, and the leadership team obviously trickles it down. Obviously, everyone takes their marching orders. We'll
Yeah.
call it, for lack of a better word. In this model, it's the opposite. It's grassroots. It's committee based as well. So we tend to use them as thoughtful leaders. You got to remember the average member in Teema comes with, I would say, around 15 plus years of industry plus experience. Also, the average member in Teema comes with just over 10 years of Teema experience. So we have a high degree of in-house expertise and experience. And I find it fascinating that at my fingertips, I have these entrepreneurs at my fingertips to obviously help us get to that next best version of ourselves. So yeah, that's something I'm very fortunate to say that I have. Absolutely.
I want to pivot a little bit to
Yeah.
data forecast as we record this end of October
Yes.
2025. It's
Yep.
been a year.
Yep.
Feels like we've been saying this for many years now. But most people are exhausted this year.
Yep.
Okay, mentally, emotionally, financially, you name it. What, what's the data telling you? What are you seeing? And what do you think's gonna? When do you think this is gonna turn?
Yeah. I'm always fascinated by the data that's out there, and there's no one has that crystal ball, but we all hear the news about the key factors is staffing firms are going to be continue to navigate uncertainties, when it comes to inflation, labor shortages, geopolitics. And it's still incumbent to look at what are your growth levers, right? But yeah, the data I've seen is, we're heading towards a negative 2% market is what is indicated by SA in Canada. I think a negative 4% market outputs predicted for the US market. Employment growth's been slowing, as you probably noticed, month over month. Last month was a great results number actually on the full-time jobs front actually. So that was really encouraging to see. There's something called the business sentiment survey. I don't know if you've heard of the BOS indicator, and it had shown that hiring plans are starting to a little bit slip a little bit. So these are things this is disruption that we're aware of, right? And I still think that it's incumbent on leaders to have an understanding that I think what we're going to see is more of a measured optimism, we'll call it. And that means understanding that we're still in a market that's cautious. There's going to be selective recovery rather than we'll call it full scale hiring. So, right now, I think right now, I would say focus on do you have the right technology tools and are you leveling up your training, your people? And I would even say this, do you have the right leaders? Just because 2 years ago you had certain key leaders in certain functions does not mean that you have the right leaders in place to handle this new market composition that we're heading towards here. So what we're going to see is, I think, as a market that's kind of selective hiring when it comes to sectors and functions. I do see some positive signs when it comes to sectors like construction. The energy sector has got lots of infrastructure spend that's coming on board. I don't know if you saw this, but something that's really fascinating to me is this push of clients wanting IT solutions to become more outcome based rather than staff augmentation based. So I saw numbers that saying that IT solutions is up 19% in Canada, whereas IT staff aug is down by 6%. So we have to be prepared to understand that clients are going to want us to show up differently. Speed will be paramount, but flexibility in pricing will be key, being because clients are very focused on margin pressure. So you as a sales professional need to come in with a great deal of creativity, high emotional intelligence of understanding what does cost efficiency mean for that organization. So those are a few nuggets that are showing that I think that we need to be aware of in this current market that we're in, for sure.
I think the biggest one for me is the geopoliticals. It's you just don't know what is going to happen. And that is
Right.
stuff that many of us feel is beyond our control.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely one that I'm seeing having a huge impact. With the
No
US
doubt.
minus 4%. And I guess in Canada minus 2%. What I say to that is, yes, that's the data. That's what the
For
researchers,
sure.
quote
Yeah.
unquote, the experts are saying. But that does not mean I as a business have to have minus 2%.
That's
Okay,
right.
that or
Don't
in
have
the
that
US
mindset.
minus 4%. It's
Yeah.
me as a business, it's like, okay, so where am I going to double down? How am I going to change my process? How am I going to pivot? Whatever that might look like. Because if we keep on working the way we are, why are we surprised that business is down? What I'm saying is those ones that are niching down, pivoting their business. We as a
Yes.
business have moved to a contained model only. So we don't do
That's
contingency.
right.
We've got a couple of clients that we've had for many, many years that are grandfathered in. But outside of that, no, I'm not working for free. I'm not going to expect my team to work for free. But if we continue that traditional contingency model,
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to get the results aren't going to be any different,
Correct. Yeah.
right? And you
So
talked
that
about
that.
star fog being down and it being more outcome based. So to me, if I was in that tech space, I
Mm-hmm.
would be looking at it and saying, oh dear, right? What am I doing?
That's right.
Right? And you said something really interesting earlier. Have you, because everybody looks at it and says, have I got the right salesperson? Have I got the right recruiter? Very few
Mm-hmm.
people look at it and say, am I the right person? Is my
Mm-hmm.
leadership the right team? We always look at the problem being one tier down, two tier down, depending on how big the company is.
Yeah, it's such a great point, and something that we were big proponents in Teema is if we don't have the leadership capacity to understand what that disruption will do to us, I'd rather disrupt by design than by default.
Yep.
So I'm a big believer of getting fractional support. So right now in my organization, we're bringing all kinds of fractional support to help kind of what don't we know, right? But yeah, getting back to what you said about being specific, I really love the fact of sticking to a lane. I'm a big believer in
Yep.
this, and there are emerging data that's showing there's going to be big demand for certain regions, certain sectors, certain verticals, but you got to show up, and you got to stick to that lane, and it's hard, right? That's really important. I would say firms that so focus just on perm, I think it's starting to show some softening effects. So can that organization emphasize and start dripping that they do, now contingent or contract to perm, and sectors that are going to have sensitivity. And I know in Canada, we're a big, Ontario is a big base at 58% of contingent spend comes out of Ontario. So we're talking trade, banking, manufacturing. So anything in that, especially the export dependent space, it's going to require recruiting agencies to be very flexible and adaptable in their strategies. But there's business to be had. There's no doubt about it for sure, right? And like I mentioned before, there are other key sectors like the energy sector, IT, and solutions that will be more agile. So it's not all doom and gloom for sure, but I think being very focused, being in one lane, is a mindset that will become a must.
And I think
To be
there's
quite
a
frank.
couple of points to pick up on there, because especially what you said about people that your traditional perm shop and the market softening, and how else can they pivot contracting
Hmm.
interim, just off the top of my head. A lot of those people, those owners are like, they might not come from that background. So it's like, don't understand it. So
True.
if I don't understand it, I'm not going to do it. Secondly, the whole compliance, the contractor payroll,
Hmm.
all of that stuff. Well, I'm going to plug our sponsor here, Ascend, right? So that's, they
Yeah,
take care of that. So
no
you
doubt.
can go and get third party companies who will take care of that. But the piece where, okay, I've only ever done perms, so I'm not going to touch contracting because I don't understand it. Hire an expert that does.
Or create partnerships with others that do it, because your responsibility in the eyes of the clients do so much homework on us. You got to come very much with tangible kind of outcomes that you can solve their problems for them. So I'm a big believer of, let's put our differences aside as competitors, and let's build agreements that allow us to work in trifactor agreements. I've actually done this and seen this with great success, actually.
Our industry generally
So
just refuses. It's like trying to get blood out of a stone
yeah,
at times. It's that
I hear
old
you.
thinking, though, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
that
it is.
old thinking. But the other piece I was going to add was, and I've seen read some articles in the last couple of weeks where, and I wish I'd saved it, and the title was something to this effect: the next set of millionaires are not going to be coming out of AI; they're going to be coming out of the trades. And
That's right.
I remember when I was growing up, everybody was moving away from trades. It was like accountant, doctor, sort of like
Yeah.
white collar, right? Because it's like, no, you don't do trades. That's coming back. So I've read that in something to
Yeah.
that effect in 2 or 3 different articles. So again, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, so for those companies that have that alignment, that's something you need to be exploring. Dismiss it, but dismiss it after
Mhm.
you've explored it.
Yeah. Are you as an organization willing to put yourself out there and say, this is a category where we want to own, we want to lead, we want to disrupt? And you're right, your skilled trades, I do know in the next, I think, 7 to 8 years, there'll be over 700,000 skilled trades required in Canada alone, with
Wow.
the amount of infrastructure projects that are now on the books, if you can believe it. So how can you as an organization, take advantage of a market trend? And that's a point of vision. Getting back to our original part of our discussion is, are you visionary to understand what A is going to disrupt you, to B, pivot to what is now emerging as a new trend or a growth lever for your organization? And that's why you always got to be thinking ahead, right? So yeah, it's a
I think
great
a lot of
stat you just
companies
shared.
right now, going back to what I said earlier about the exhaustion, they're right now just thinking, okay, let's just get through 2025,
Yeah,
right? And 2026, okay, we'll start thinking about it. So, and I get that. That's,
sure do.
I'm not
Yeah.
dismissing that emotional roller coaster that a lot of companies have been, and it's not just the staffing industry, but I just personally think it's, and I'm the girl whose cup is always half full. I just think in every downturn there's an opportunity, and those of us that actually explore it, now you can explore it and run with it, explore it and dismiss it, but at least you've made an informed decision with whichever way you go.
Mhm. Yeah, you probably heard this, right, Suki? It's like, be okay with not just having curiosity, but experiment fast. But that's hard, right, for bigger organizations that have a big engine. And I've been part of big, small, medium organizations, and I take for granted how hard it is in a large organization, and then coming to a smaller organization where you have that white canvas. wow, I can experiment. I can do this for 3 months to see if this is the right growth lever. But I'm always a big believer of experimenting with passion for sure, with great data insight for sure. No doubt
Yes,
about it. Be
incubate that
okay with it.
idea. Incubate it
Yeah,
for X period of time. Don't put it into your core business, because what
that's right.
happens is, in smaller agencies, unfortunately,
Hmm.
through a number of different reasons, they're like, okay, now we're doing it this way. And what they do is they disrupt the engine
Too much.
that's keeping it.
Yeah,
It's too much disruption because people are
too
like,
much.
okay, well, I
Yeah,
got to hit my revenue goals this month. But now you're asking me to. So when we moved to the contain model, I incubated it over here and slowly drip fed it into the main business. So that
right, right.
transition wasn't. And then I've had other ideas where we've incubated, and I'm just like, thank God I didn't put that in my core business because that idea doesn't work. But at least I know it doesn't work now, right?
That's right.
So I know we're coming up to time. What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, what agencies should be thinking about doing. I mean, you've had podcasts on AI. I'm not here to say
Yep,
talk a lot about AI, but I believe, avoid overspending, but adopting AI that you think will be measurable improvements for your organization. You and I talked about leadership today and accountability. It's important to have continually require in yourself as leaders to have those clear goals, to build that alignment. I think it's important to, honestly, in this market, I think it's important to have a gross profit margin focus. I
yep.
think it's okay to say that we're going to prioritize profitability over revenue growth. That's my personal opinion. And, I think it's important to say that because, I mean, the market will shift. The pie will look different. But if you don't hold your pricing, your margins, very, very tightly, it can go backwards pretty quickly. Workforce culture, because we're dealing with so much continuous change, make sure in your workforce that you're continually adopting new learning methods and balancing that, every leader needs to sharpen their own sword. I ask myself and my own fellow executive leaders, we need to sharpen our sword. And something that we're doing is finding coaches who can bring a layer into each of us so we can be a better version of ourselves for our organization. And yeah, it's, invest in leadership. I mentioned this before. It's really, really important. Invest in technology, tools, and yeah, leaders that are going to be helping you get to the next place. Absolutely. Those are just a few nuggets there.
Brilliant. And last but not least, if somebody's listening to this, they want to reach out to you, what's the best way
For
that
sure.
they can connect with you?
For sure. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to respond to your messages. Happy to connect with you on LinkedIn would be great.
Jeremy, thank you ever so much for your time. I loved the discussion on vision. For
It's my
me,
favorite topic.
yeah, that it's one that is so, it's an exercise for a lot of people. And I love the different
That's right.
perspective you've brought in it. So thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye for now.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to Talent Titans. Be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, share it with your colleagues or leave a review. It really helps others discover us. Talent Titans is sponsored by Ascend, the platform that simplifies hiring across the US and Canada. From onboarding and payroll to benefits and compliance, they handle the back office so you can focus on growing your agency. Learn more at ascend.com. I'm Suky and I'll see you next time.